Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Marketing Success in China webinar. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm the manager for Greater China region with Australian Business Consulting and Solutions. By way of background, Australian Business Consulting and Solutions is a multidisciplined consultancy working with companies and helping them in the field of marketing, international business, OHS, etc. In the past 10 years, I have worked with over 200 companies, helping them to export to China, help them with business partner search in China, help them to market the products in China. Today with me is Leila Hajali, the marketing manager of Australian Business Consulting Solutions.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. As Sarah mentioned, I do manage Australian Businesses Marketing Agency. We are a multidisciplinary marketing agency whereby we provide customers with assistance developing their strategies, developing websites, developing and managing their digital marketing requirements. We have a full service design studio, and also we help implement those marketing strategies and marketing activities. We've worked with the trade department in particular for quite some time in helping many customers launch their brand and their business internationally. So it's the reason why Sarah and I have joined together today to bring you this presentation, which we hope you enjoy.
Okay. Before we look at marketing in China, let's have a quick look at the economic development in China. Over 30 years ago, China had a population of 1 billion. Today, China has more than 1.3 billion population. It's a huge market in terms of population. And 30 years ago, China was the 7th largest economy in the world. Today, China is the 2nd largest world economy, just next to the United States. And then 30 years ago, China's GDP was $454 million, and today the number is totally different. Today is 30.4 trillion US dollars. And back then, 30 years ago, China's economy was growing steadily, but at very low growth rate, sitting at 2.6% in 1984. Last year, China's GDP growth was 7.7%, which is almost 3 times of OECD countries' average GDP growth.
So as most of us would be aware, China is a huge economy, so much so that it's actually the 2nd largest in the world. As Sarah pointed out, it's one of the fastest growing over the last 30 years, but it is really important that you understand your Chinese customer, because their GDP per capita is only $6,900 US dollars. So it is important, even though those figures are phenomenal, to really understand the Chinese customer and how to market to them.
Yeah, we talk about the huge market in China with big numbers, huge population, but usually we suggest our companies, Australian companies, to start small in China. And before they enter China market, they should have a thorough understanding of the market. Do your homework, do the market research, find your competitors' information, look at market pricing, identify your niche markets, see what is the needs from that niche market, how to distribute to that market, and what's the key success factors for that market. So it's very important to have that homework done, understand the market, and then start small to do a big trial before you roll out to whole China. And in some cases, for advanced companies, when they have been in China for a couple of years, they could look at the option to even build up their own local presence or offices in China.
So throughout this presentation, if anybody's got any questions, please feel free to ask them. You'll see a little box on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you type your question there, we can address those at the end of the presentation. So to give you a bit of an understanding of each of the different markets, and before, you know, like Sarah said, to make sure that you've done your research and you're aware of what you're getting yourself into, it is important to understand the differences and complexities between the rural suburbs or and then on the city populations, and then also to understand the differences between Tier 1, Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, because there's vast differences within those different sectors, and of course then your marketing needs to be adjusted to suit. So Tier 1 cities were the first to be opened to competitive economic development by the Chinese government. These cities are traditionally recognised for their dense population and also for their cultural and economic influence. So as a result of that, Tier 1 cities generally attract the attention of foreign enterprises, and given their large middle class representation and income levels that are well above national averages is generally the reason why these large international companies will start with Tier 1 cities first. These cities represent China's most developed markets, and in terms of what the consumer behaviour is like. So Tier 1 examples of Tier 1 cities, if you're looking at taking your product or your service to China, are cities like Shanghai, like Beijing, like Shenzhen, like Guangzhou. Those are the types of cities that would be classified as Tier 1 cities. They're well known for being important politically, as we've said, culturally, industrial and financial centres in China, as well as key hubs for the Greater Asia region as well. Tier 2 cities are a lot less competitive, and their labour costs are substantially cheaper as well. So they have an attraction, but for a different reason. But that's comparing it to Tier 1 cities, obviously. They're rapidly increasing in their consumer spending within the second tier cities. They're creating more demand for foreign brands as a result of that growth. What you do need to be considerate of, however, is that the income of the consumers in Tier 2 cities are relatively less than what there is in Tier 1 cities. So it is important to be aware of that when you are a foreign brand, that when you're marketing in there. Tier 3 cities, there's approximately 200 country level cities that are classified as Tier 3 cities in China, and what you should also be aware of, that within each of the tiers there's also further categorization with high, medium and low. So you could be a Tier 3 high city, for example. There's more than there's those 200 cities, so that there's a really wide population opportunity out there. What's really, I suppose, crazy for me to think about is that there's 120 cities within China that have a population of more than 1 million people. And for me, it's almost mind-blowing to kind of think of that type of opportunity that exists in China. So it really is huge.
Yeah. Then next, let's have a look of Australia-China bilateral trade in the past 26 years. As you can see, this chart shows the import and export between Australia and China since 1988. The darker line, they're both orange lines. Like the dark line is the Australians' import from China, while the lighter line is Australians' export to China. As you can see from the chart, both import and export jumped a lot in the past 30 years, especially after year 2000. And in year 2008, Australia's export exceeded Australia's import from China. That means Australia has been trade surplus with China since 2008, which is very unusual among OECD countries. Most OECD countries actually import more products from China rather than export to China. Okay, and I think next we will have a look of what has been driven this export to China and what is the export-import journey between Australia and China. Leila, would you like to?
So even though this is, as Sarah said, technically the 52nd year or the 52nd anniversary of the Australian-China diplomatic relationship. It really hasn't been, like Sarah said, probably the last 30 odd years where there's really the relationship and the economic exchange has really taken off. So in the 80s, for example, as you can see on the slide in front of you, Australia exported a little bit of machinery and light industrial products to China, and China mostly exported labour-intensive light industry products back to Australia. Both countries had a little investment in each other's economies. So it started off as a bit of a slowly relationship. In the 90s, Australia started to export mining resources to China, but the real boom of the mining export happened in the last decade, as we're all aware. China started to then export machinery to Australia, and Australia started to set up small-scale procurement offices in China to coordinate the sourcing of these activities. So we're starting to see a bit more of a deeper kind of involvement in both of the countries. Then the 2000s is when the real quantum leap of the bilateral trade between the countries happened. Australia's education, tourism, export to China, mining resources started to export to China, and then most recent years, of course, the consumer goods that we really started to push into China as well, that really started to boom, and then obviously boosted that bilateral trade. China also started to export food and agricultural products to Australia, and services such as financial services, telecom services, and those types of things. So we really, I would probably say the last 10 to 15 years, Sarah, that there started to be that real strengthening of the relationship between the two countries.
Okay, let's have a closer look at what we actually exported to China last year. As you can see from this pie chart, the major export from Australia to China was crude materials, basically mining resources and or this type of mining resources. And followed by that is the food and agriculture sector. Australian seafood export, meat export, and other food and beverages, which contribute a huge sector of Australia's export to China. And followed by that is the service sector. Mostly it was education and tourism. So they contribute more than together with mining resources, food and agriculture, and education and tourism contribute more than 70% of Australian export to China. I would say the sector which really picked up quickly in the past couple of years was food and beverage and education and tourism sectors.
So we had a bit of a look at the potential that China has, and we reviewed some of our background so far. So I think we've all got a bit on the same level playing field as to the potential that there exists in China. So what we thought we would do now is then have a look at the types of consumer goods and services that you would potentially consider to export into China. So if you have a look at the services on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see things like what we've said: tourism, education, professional services. There are a lot of the types of businesses from the service sector that we're starting to see moving over into China, and that we've been working with and helping export there. And then from the products, it's the food and beverage, the health food products, products for children. They really are growing from strength to strength, and we've had great successes on behalf of our clients in those product areas as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now comes to the core part of this webinar. We will talk about some marketing tips. So today we'll talk about 5 key marketing tips in China. And the first one is when you market products in China, remember to leverage Chinese class and group mindset. Chinese are group-oriented people, and also Chinese people really pay attention to these kind of hierarchical social structures and status. So in China, you'll find big brands sell much better in China than in, say, Western countries. Chinese love to show their social status by wearing international brands, internationally recognized brands. They love to follow celebrities. They love to wear clothing or use products that shows they belong to certain social groups. So it's important to tell your story that if you are targeting premium market in China, tell the story about your brand, tell people the heritage of the brand, tell the premium and prestigious status of the brand in other market. And the tricky thing here is, in lots of cases, the brand may not be taken as a premium brand in Australia, but when you go to China, you can reposition yourself as a premium range product through exclusive distribution channels. And also in China, you will see lots of people require this sense of belonging. They belong to certain type of groups. They belong to certain type of consumer groups. One case study is was a company in South Australia, actually a farm in South Australia. They had these lovely lavender bears, and then they did not make sales. Say 3 years ago, they did not make much sales in China, and then roughly 2-3 years ago, one Chinese actress posted a picture of her holding a lavender bear on her Weibo. We will talk about Weibo. It's a social media. We'll talk about that later. So she posted this picture because actually her boyfriend was the distributor for lavender bear in Hong Kong. So she was doing this self-promotion for her boyfriend's product. And then within 24 hours, the sales of this lavender bear really took off in China. It was sold out within 48 hours in China, and they had to ask for urgent shipment from South Australia farm. And today you could see this lavender bear anywhere, even in the duty-free shops at Sydney Airport. And they are all targeting Chinese consumers who still have this fresh memory of this beautiful Chinese actress holding a lovely lavender bear. So if you use the right brand ambassador or market to your target group through our brand ambassador that target market recognize, that is a very easy way to have very long-lasting market effect in China. And also you will see lots of people, they wear similar products as the brands and as the friends do in China. When you see a group of friends, usually you see them, they are wearing the same brand watches. They wear the same level of brands of clothing because they want to show they belong to certain groups. So that is quite interesting situation in China. And in lots of cases, a group of friends go to the shop, they ask for the same brand's products in China. So leverage this Chinese class and group mindset that will make your sales in China much easier.
So within the marketing agency, and Sarah's given us feedback as well that her trade clients ask these questions as well, is about social media. You know, what is it what sites are probably the most prominent social media platforms to use in China, especially because as a country, their social interaction, their social media sites are so different to the ones that we use in Australia. So it can be quite difficult for people to wrap their heads around what to use and how to use it. So what we're going to do today is have a look at 3 of the most popular social media platforms at the moment. But if we have a look at the social sites that we've got on the screen at the moment, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, and there's Instagram. They're probably some of the most popular social media sites that we've got here in Australia. And then their counterparts are things like Weibo, Qzone, WeChat, RenRen, and that's their equivalent. So you're not going to find Instagram in Australia. So what we'll do, in China. So what we'll do today is to look at each of those social media platforms individually, so that you get a sense of understanding as to how to use them to leverage and promote your product or your service, like what Sarah's given in that previous case study example. So the first platform we'll look at is Weibo. It is China's version of Twitter, or the closest thing that we can kind of associate with Twitter. It is one of the most popular sites in China, and it is used by over 30% of the internet users. So 30% doesn't seem that high, but then when there's, billions of people that are in a country, 30% is quite substantial, and I'll be pretty happy with that. It has a market penetration similar to what Twitter does in the US, and has about 556 million registered users. So it really is an integral platform for you to engage in when you launch your product into China. To show you the type of engagement the Chinese people have with this social media platform, there's about 100 million messages that are posted on a daily basis through Weibo, so it's massive. If you're thinking about your target audience and you're thinking whether or not Weibo is good for you, or appropriate for what it is that you're selling, the type of person that traditionally uses Weibo, 82% of them born after 1980. So it's the younger group of people. 80% of them completed secondary education, so they are educated, they know what they want, and they're not shy to express that. They typically live in the first or second tier cities. So if you think back to what we were speaking about earlier on, they've got a higher degrees of income and a little bit more influential, those types of things. And they purchase about 50% or 54% of their goods and services are purchased through Weibo in China. So it has massive potential. To give you a bit of an idea as how you would actually use Weibo from a marketing perspective, if you think about it, that it is similar to Twitter, you have a certain limits of characters that you can use in your post. But I suppose we're lucky with a character in Chinese language is actually a word. So where you've got Twitter, it holds 140 characters. Weibo holds something quite similar, but it's 114 characters. But then when you look at that, compare it to the English language, it's actually 434 characters that you've got. So you almost are able to triple what you would say through Weibo than if you compare that to Twitter. So what's also a little bit difference between Twitter and with Weibo is that Twitter is more clean and simplistic, whereas Weibo is much more integrated and it's about engagement with its community. So they've integrated the platform with things like email, apps and games so that their users really do maximize their interaction with the platform, which then from your perspective or from a marketing perspective opens up, or you can almost unleash your creativity in how it is that you promote your product or service through Weibo. Weibo is also like Sarah mentioned, is being developed with the idea of KOLs or key opinion leaders. So these are influential people like the actress we saw in the case study previously that has millions of followers, and Weibo, as a result of that, successfully commercialized these KOLs or key opinion leaders so that their posts almost become ads, and then we have great success stories like what we did with the lavender bear. So Weibo it really is quite an influential platform.
And currently in China, the biggest internet phenomenon is WeChat. WeChat is like a combination of mobile Facebook and Skype. I think there's a similar app in Australia.
WhatsApp is quite similar, yeah.
WhatsApp, yeah, I think it is quite similar to WhatsApp. So you can do instant messaging on WeChat. You can definitely post your photos, pictures, messages on WeChat and share with your friends and groups. You can put a video there. It shows where you are if you want to show where you are, to tell everybody where you are. And then you can even make phone calls, free phone calls if you have Wi-Fi to your friends anywhere in the world. So currently WeChat has over 600 million registered users and over 4 million active users every month in China. And in recent months, I have even seen more and more of my clients here in Australia started using WeChat to communicate with the Chinese partners. And even in our team, we have a China team in Sydney and also a China team in Shanghai. And then so we have a WeChat group. And then we are communicating with my team in Shanghai, and then we put all the messages on WeChat, pictures of showroom products, new clients, any information. And our staff in China, they are just used to WeChat communication rather than email. So you can see how WeChat, how powerful WeChat is in China. And also, if you travel to China, you will see people use WeChat a lot, not just for instant messaging and putting posts there. They do it. If they want to book a taxi, they go to WeChat. If they want to do shopping, they even do not go to those B2C, C2C, typical traditional online e-marketplace. More and more young professionals go to these WeChat shops. And now there's even a new term in China. They do not call it e-commerce. They call it m-commerce, macro shops on WeChat. So people do games. They do purchasing of products. They book taxis. They look for restaurants. They pretty much live on WeChat. When I was in China a couple of weeks ago, and with my team in China, we were looking for restaurants, and then everybody, like every staff, just took their mobile, went to WeChat, and said, "Okay, see, this is a this is restaurant my friends recommended, and that is the closest restaurant which has the highest ranking." So WeChat is a powerful tool to market to China market, and companies can have like a public WeChat account, which you can attract followers and educate, market, promote your products and brands on WeChat.
So it's almost like a Google, you know, it's the TripAdvisor, it's the restaurant review, the Uber. You don't have to go to taxis combined anymore. It's
Exactly.
all just in WeChat.
It's like the combine. It's like, okay, one app that solves all your
Does
problems.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next app that we'll be looking at, or the next social media platform, is RenRen, and it's most often compared to Facebook because it started out as an on-campus communicating tool similar to what Facebook did. It really only went live in 2009, I think it was, where it was then renamed to RenRen. It was called something else prior to that, when it was just the university application. But RenRen is reportedly now has about 206 million active users on their platform, compared to Facebook's 1.15 billion. But if you think about the fact that Facebook is everywhere and RenRen is just in China, it's still impressive figures. Many of its users have started to move off RenRen and they're starting to go to different social media sites like Weibo and WeChat, especially as we've just discovered previously. WeChat is pretty much the solution to all problems. So RenRen is starting to lose a little bit of its penetration in the marketplace, but it's still should form part of your consideration for your marketing or your social media integration in China. So look at how it is that you would use it and who your target audience is and if they're on it as well.
Yeah. The next tip is to leverage regional subcultures in China. Understand that the regional difference and the needs and specific practice and the culture in that region will definitely help you to market your products and service better in that specific market segment. I think lots of common mistakes of lots of companies go to China is when they go to China is they take China as one country and one market. Actually, China is one country, but it's more like 30 markets. And then even in China, there's a perception of each market. There are actually 34 provincial level provinces, autonomous regions, or mega cities in China, and each region, city has their own subculture. For example, when people refer to people in a northeast part of China, they refer them as impulsive show-off buyers. When the people talk about buyers in East China, they will say, okay, they are very smart and value for money buyers. And if you go to South China, that is down-to-earth buyers. If you go to, say, northwest part of China, they are the kind of think out of the square buyers. They are kind of perceptions, different cultures. And also, when people talk about different provinces, they even have nicknames and they have a label for each provinces, just with a common perception of Chinese about each other and people in different regions. And that actually is quite true in lots of cases. When you go to that region, you'll find, okay, the consumers and the markets here is like that. Yes, they do not pay big monies for just for brands in this province. They pay lots of money for the brands and they don't care much about the function in that province. So it's very important and critical to understand these kind of differences in different regions. And then probably you have even different marketing approach to different cities.
And you would also then use that to consider whether or not your product is appropriate for that city as well.
Exactly. So actually, this China map is it's called China in the Eye of Taobao. So Taobao is like a C2C online platform. So this map is was developed based on the big data from Taobao. It shows in each region what product has the best sale. So as you can see, Argbus has the best sales in Liaoning, that is Liaoning or Jilin, sorry, Jilin province in northeast part of China. And then bags really have good sales in east part of China near to Shanghai and Jiangsu, Zhejiang provinces. So with this information, especially big data from these e-platforms, you can have a better understanding what products is more suitable for which region. And then if you combine this knowledge with the subcultures and what kind of money people pay for what, for value for money, for quality, for function, for brand, then you can have a better approach to tap into that market. Actually, our team, we're talking to the major e-commerce platforms in China like Tmall, Taobao, JD.com, and working with them on these big data, which we do not share with anyone, but only the strategic partners. So with that information, we have more tailored approach to work with companies here to tap into China market.
Yeah. Because it's even then about the positioning that you take, how you communicate about your product as well, and how you're allowing it to be perceived. Because I think like what you mentioned before, I think that was really valuable. Even though your product is not necessarily perceived as being a luxury product in Australia, you know, China is your opportunity to do a bit of a facelift and position yourself differently. So I suppose depending on which market you're going into, you could do something different.
Exactly, and there are lots of actually there are quite a few factors to consider when you make such decision. You can reposition your products in China, and then you may worry, okay, that repositioning in China, will that affect your sales here in Australia? Or eventually, Chinese consumers are becoming more sophisticated. They do their own research and they find your product is mass market product, why it is positioned as a premium range product. In that case, actually, you need to have a clear marketing and China strategy in the initial place, and look at the whole journey after you, even from now on. So maybe you develop a separate brand for China market, or you have two brands for China, and each brand you have a little bit different type of products to target different market segments in China. So in that case, that does not affect your brand, and also it does not dilute your brand in China or Australia. So there's some factors to consider. Yeah, actually, you raised quite an interesting point about that. Yeah, and that is important to have the whole strategy in place before you enter China, and that is based on your thorough understanding and research of the Chinese market.
Because don't you think sometimes, Sarah, people just throw themselves into China without thinking, like what you said, the long-term strategy where they really want this to go and what the possible implications could be?
Yeah, I would say lots of companies do that. They take China as a huge market, one market, lots of opportunities. It's a gold digging place, and say, I would just sell to whoever who can buy this and pay me up front. I think some companies still have that mentality, and that creates lots of trouble on the long term. End of the day, if you're not targeting the red region, so I would say the most suitable regions or market segments, that may affect your profit margin if you have limited production capacity. And then, of course, you need to target the region that you can generate the best profit margin. And then you have sustainable competency. Another thing is if you do not have strategy, you sell into China and dump the product in China. Will that dilute your strategy, your brand here? And also, if you do not have a strategy in China, your distributors in China will fight with each other, and then kind of infringe on other distributors' territories. And that happens with some exporters that we have come across. So I think it's very important at the very initial stage to have all this plan in place. And in China, you do need to be a little bit flexible. Yes, we have the plan in place, but also we refine that plan
absolutely as you come across your learnings and you have more and more experience.
Exactly. It's a fun balance. Have the strategy in place, but also be a little bit flexible. Another very important thing in China is, I would say, a cheap way to market is to leverage most current hot topics in China. Because Chinese people spend long hours on mobiles. I actually saw this news that actually Chinese spend the longest hours on mobiles.
Oh, really?
Nations, yeah. And what they do is they spend time on mobile, not talking to friends. They do talk to friends, but also checking all the information, current news. They all subscribe to this instant news, and whatever news, hot topics, and current news. Will stay there for a few hours, then lots of companies will then leverage that hot topics to do a bit free advertising. As long as you, whatever you want to market to China or what you want to tell to China market is linked to that hot topic, you actually will get this free ride. I'll show you an example. In the past 2 weeks, I would say the hottest topic among, say, common Chinese is the #1 most famous Chinese movie star posted a picture of her and her boyfriend. That is the first time she recognized, and she had got this boyfriend, and the boyfriend was also Chinese movie star. And they used a very short, sharp description. She just put one word, we. We, like us, we. Yeah.
And so she's making the announcement. She's taken.
She was making an announcement, and then those smart brands quickly leveraged this opportunity to do their free advertisement. McDonald's, within an hour, McDonald's posted this picture on their Weibo with same text, we. Then you see these two cups of
so they're a couple.
Exactly, like a couple, and then. Still within an hour, the Chinese #1 mobile brand, Me, posted a picture on their WeChat and Weibo account as well. And then a black and a white mobile. The lady is quite white, while the boy is a bit black. So, and then they use this picture, and then down there the text is the black cow, which is the nickname of the boy, and then the white rich beauty, which is usually people call that actress, the white rich beauty. So they use this to leverage this hot topic, and as soon as they post this, Chinese consumers forward this post to their friends, and then actually, I'm not sure whether we can see the statistic here. We can't see, but actually within an hour, that post was forwarded by over 450,000 consumers.
It's huge numbers for an hour.
So that is all free advertisement. You just quickly saw the news, put the post, and then people pass it on to their friends.
Yeah.
And also, even Chinese banks, they were not that boring anymore. They became really creative. China Investment Bank put this post within 2 hours after that news. And about their credit card. So a black one and a white one again use the same word, we, as the text for this post. So all these brands, they leverage this opportunity to promote their brand in a, I would say, really is a free way, it's a cost-effective way to.
Absolutely, and I think the Chinese market as well is the perfect audience to be able to do that type of thing. For me, it's not shocking that they have the highest mobile usage statistics out of anywhere in the world, because a lot of them never really bought a desktop or a laptop. They went straight to mobile, so all of their engagement online is through their mobile phone, and I think taking that into consideration, the ease of which they can share these different campaigns and the way that people are leveraging.
Exactly, and also because they use mobiles and they subscribe to instant news, they got these hot topics in a second, and you can keep their attention span only that long. So smart brands quickly leverage this opportunity, put a post quickly, and then that post will come and just number 2. Okay, this like the way that actress picture was the #1 news, and then all these brands became number 2, number 3 news on all Chinese medias across China in a couple of hours. So
I think then what that message for me anyway, as the marketer, if I was a brand in Australia launching my product over into China, it needs to be more than I'm going to give my product to a distributor and let them go and do what they need to do. You literally need to be living and breathing the Chinese market to really kind of make it a successful story for yourself.
Exactly, and also my experience working with Australian companies in the past a decade and then have them in China market is I talk to Chinese distributors on a daily basis and visit China a lot and meeting with distributors. I found Chinese distributors, lots of them, they are not marketing savvy people. Lots of them are still like traditional type of distributors. They have the strong relationship with retail chains or corporate channels, then selling to those channels or retail chains without much marketing. But that actually means that you miss out lots of opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
And then, so you cannot just leave the marketing to your distributor's hand. Yes, they can do, but you need to have your requirement and know what is happening in China, or understand the Chinese culture and push the distributor to keep up with what is happening in China and to broaden the market.
Yeah, or have a Chinese marketing team or a business that's here in Australia that also has an extension over in China and and leverage that opportunity that way.
Exactly, you need someone who is abreast with what is happening in China, has that insight, fully understand the Chinese culture and how ways to see what's the best approach to market to China.
Yeah, absolutely. The fifth and I suppose final tip that we've got for today's website, for webinar, is about professional networks. So we've spoken about Weibo, about RenRen, about WeChat, about how you can leverage all of these different social media sites to really get free advertising, as Sarah calls it. But what we thought we would focus on as well is if you are in the professional services sector as well, or if you're selling services in general, there are professional networks that are available to you. So there is Deji, there is WeLink, there is Tianji, but I like to talk about LinkedIn when we look at this, because I think LinkedIn has done a fantastic job of really looking at the Chinese market and saying, okay, then, here's our product or our service, but let's incorporate that into the way that the Chinese engage in their popular social media channels. So as an example, they've people who use LinkedIn in China can actually integrate their LinkedIn profile with their WeChat profile. So LinkedIn has gone in and said, okay, how do people really communicate in the Chinese market? And they've looked at developing or modifying the solution that they have to work with in the Chinese market, so they have higher success rates and deeper penetration within that sector. So they've really thought about that market, like what we've been talking about today, instead of kind of taking that scattergun approach. They did have, or they did learn some really harsh lessons to be able to come to that conclusion, though. So they originally launched their English site without modifications some years ago, and it's only then in 2014 that they launched the Chinese version, so the integration with WeChat, and that's where they've had huge success. They've actually doubled the number of users that they've got in China to about 5 million people, which for me, in a year, I'd be pretty impressed with that. If I had 5 million customers in 1 year, I'd be pretty happy with that result. But it really does highlight, that there is a professional network available to you if you are selling services. I think sometimes people really understand if they've got a product that it can be sold into China, but services are as sellable as what products are into China, and this is an avenue where I think that there are huge lessons to be learned from LinkedIn, and I think for me as well, it highlights that just because you're a big brand doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It really does show that you have to do your research, like what we've been talking about, and going into the China market, really aware of how that audience engages.
Yeah, talking about marketing in China and market your goods and services in China. Actually, New South Wales Business Chamber has a good program to help Australian companies, especially SMEs, to market the products in China. The program is called Export Growth China Program, which is supported by the federal government here, Austrade, but also it is in partnership with China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, which is a Chinese government agency for international trade industry. So under this program, the Australian SMEs products and services will be taken to China, will be marketed in China for 6 months. And the product team will help companies actually will do all these activities in China. They will launch catalogs in China. There's a China website that showcase each company's and products and services. The chamber actually put a huge amount of financial resources to do SEO and attract traffic to the China website. There's social media. There's a WeChat account already. And there's ongoing events in partnership with China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, but also there are ongoing participation at various trade fairs in China. And also the team is doing road shows throughout China. And the chamber has a showroom in Shanghai Mart to promote the product 365 days a year. So it's like a permanent trade fair.
Shop front.
Yeah, shop front. Yeah, exactly. So that is under New South Wales Business Chamber, and our team is tasked to deliver the program. So if you want to find more information, please contact me directly, or if you go to exportgrowth.com.au, you can find more information about the program. Or if you go to New South Wales Business Chamber.com.au, New South Wales Business Chamber's website, you can also find information on this program.
So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them in the little chat box at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. We've had a couple of people ask questions as part of their registration for the webinar. So we're just going to go through those now, but please do write as many questions as you have, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Sarah, one question was about marketing vocational education services into China. The person was wondering if this was a possibility.
Yeah, there's a market for vocational training in China, and I won't recommend the company to market this directly themselves in China. I would say it's very important for them to identify business partners in China. Vocational care is a very competitive market, and there are education agencies in China who are doing this, but also companies who are offering complementary training services that could be also good target. And also ideally the company has a partnership with a local agency which can tap into the government sector, because lots of vocational training actually are under the government tender program.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely.
It's a definite possibility.
There's possibilities.
Okay. We have another question from Tim. He wants to know, how do you effectively market your e-commerce store to China without access to channels such as AdWords?
Yeah, quite different ways. We talk about social media, and we talk about, say, the Chinese major search engines, say for example Baidu, and of course you can use that, leverage that. But I would say an easy way is do not do the shop on your own website and try to market in China. First, you need to leverage the biggest online platforms in China. If, for example, B2C, you may use Tmall or JD.com. These two platforms can actually enjoy more than 95% B2C market share in China. So if Chinese people, if they want to find any products, they go to these major platforms first before they use Baidu to search for shops. Because these platforms offer them comparison of products, they can see reviews. Of course, you do need to be really competitive in terms of quality, etc. If you go to those websites and leverage those online platform. But I think that if your product or service is competitive enough, go to those websites, have an online store there. So because that is where Chinese will go first especially for consumer goods.
And Baidu is essentially like an eBay.
Baidu is Google. It's
like Google?
Google, yeah. And Taobao is more like eBay, Taobao and Tmall. But Taobao is C2C, Tmall is B2C, JD.com is B2C.
Okay.
Yeah. And probably the challenge you will face is if you want to set up a store on Tmall or JD.com, who will be managing this? Who will help you to market this? And who will pick the orders, pack the products and post it to the customers. So that is quite labor intensive, but also require the first-hand knowledge and to deal with Chinese end customers on a daily basis. Actually, you need to be there 24 hours, 24/7. So the model is usually Australian companies outsource that services to partners here in Australia or in China, usually in China, because the products will be shipped to China on a commercial scale and then posted to end customers. So Chinese companies there are lots of such Chinese companies. The key thing is you need to find a capable partner in China to do this. And of course, we can help you to identify such partners in China, and put you in touch with them, and help you to conduct due diligence and also manage the relationship on an ongoing basis. I think it's important to have such capable partners in China to handle this for you. But if you have your own offices in China, you have your own staff, that would be great. You can manage the store yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Caroline would like to know if we have a list of each of the tier cities.
Yes, we will.
Yes,
we have, Caroline. We have your contact details. We'll email that to you. Later.
Okay. Again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them in the bottom left-hand corner, and we'll get to them as we can. Sarah, a lot of people will ask questions about the biggest mistake that people make, and what do you think when an Australian exporter, regardless of their size, is trying to head into China, what is the most common, I suppose, mistake?
Well, actually, we conducted a study on Australian companies doing business with China a few years ago, and I co-authored that book called Engage China, The Realities for Australian Companies. Quite interesting. When we were writing that book, actually we did very intensive and extensive research and interviewed lots of Australian companies doing business with China. What we found is Australian companies, in lots of cases, they probably have seen too much good news about China. Even I work on China, live on China every day. I won't say it is an easy journey for companies just thinking China is a huge market and be optimistic. And then in lots of cases, I would say lots of companies too confident about their products and services. And not every product can make sale in China. If you go to China, you will see all the products and services you can imagine. The key thing is to find the selling point. And then your products may not sell well in one region in China or in one market segment, but it might be really perfect and suitable for another market segment in China. Yeah. So I think it's very important to be realistic. Don't be that optimistic, because if companies too optimistic, they may just go to China and go wherever they think they can make sale. So do the research, find your selling point, and see which region actually need exactly what you can sell. And then you have that unique selling point that nobody else can compete with you. And I would say Australian companies were very, very lucky in general, for especially for food and beverage sector, for cosmetic sector, wool-based products companies, education and tourism industry sectors. We're just perceived by Chinese to be superior compared.
And we're lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky compared with our international competitors, compared with our global competitors. So even before you go to China, you're perceived to be superior already. So, and then when you go to China, you're basically competing with a small group of international competitors in China. And for food and beverage, our major competitors are New Zealand, and even USA cannot compete with us in food and beverage. So you're in a good position already. But also be aware that you do have competitors from Australia, from New Zealand, from a few other countries. Then how you stand out from those other competitors, be realistic and do the research. Do your research. Don't just sell, make quick money, because that won't be sustainable. Do the research, understand exactly what Chinese customers require. I think that is very important to the research. And the second is to find the right partners, and but do not just rely on them. Lots of companies, because in Australia we're used to find long-term business partners, rely on them. You do your job, I do my job, and then we work well together. But in China, you can't leave it to your distributors 100%. And also, lots of distributors in China ask for quick money or high profit margin. I think that is pretty much the situation in China. The profit margin in general is higher than in Australia, and lots of opportunity. I would say there are probably more opportunities in China than in Australia. That so the distributors they target moving targets, I would say. So, and how keep them committed to market and distribute your products in. So I do feel companies need to work closely.
Yeah, because I think in all fairness to the distributor as well, as the story of a distributor, you've got multiple products that you're trying to sell. So there, you do need to keep, I think, to your point, on top of that distributor to make sure that they're doing the best that they can for your product.
Exactly. So in lots of cases, our exporters are looking for capable distributors, but I would say you should have another criteria, which is committed. So both capable and committed, both are equally important.
Absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that people think that China is the answer to everything. That there is so much opportunity in China, which of course there is, but I think that they almost get blindsided by some of the huge figures that come out of the opportunity in China, in that thinking then, okay, then there's 1 billion people that live there. There's all of this money that's being made there, and I want a piece of that. And I think it's almost, there's something to be said about too good to be true. But in saying that, I think that you can definitely make the most of the Chinese the opportunity in China if you do, like what you've said, your research, and you're clever in your approach. I think it's not a market that is easy. Like anything worthwhile in life, it doesn't come easy. You do need to make certain that you are doing everything that you can to succeed. And I think a lot of companies in Australia, certainly in my experience, will take the one-to-many approach, or they'll think that everybody needs my product. You ask a person who your target audience is, and they say everybody needs what it is that I have to sell. And I think we tell our customers that that's a mistake here in Australia, and our states are not that dissimilar to one another. I think if you were to take that approach in China and say everybody needs my, Ugg boots, or everybody needs my jacket, or whatever the case may be, then you're making even a bigger mistake than what we say to people here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people in our audience today have been to China, but if you have been to China, you probably will see, if you go to a supermarket or shopping mall, even a little store, at the same product category, you will see so many brands, much more brands than you can see. And there's one product category than here in Australia. Yeah, probably like if
very
you go to
crowded
and
marketplace.
Then for say pet products, and you see 4 or 5 brands there. But in China, you go to the supermarket, and under that pet product category, you see 30 brands. international brands and Chinese brands.
Yeah, it's
so
huge.
It's a huge market, but it's also the most crowded and competitive market in the world. But that does not mean you do not have opportunity, because overall the scale is still huge. And then in lots of cases, the company who are most competitive actually pretty much can win big market share. In lots of cases, the winner take all in China.
Absolutely.
Require you to be really ready for China market, fully understand it, and then start small, try the market, identify the right market segment, and be number one in that market segment rather than be number two across China.
Because then it's almost that reputation. Your reputation precedes you, and then people will start to want your product because, like what we've said, everybody's really quite cliquey and communal. And, if Sarah and I hang out together all day, then, I want to wear the same thing as what Sarah wears and so forth. So if you are the best in that particular market, then it almost becomes an organic growth.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope you all found the webinar to be of interest and useful. If you do have any questions, Sarah and I's details are on the screen. Please feel free to contact us directly. You'll all be contacted in the next couple of days with a copy of this recording. For those of you that have requested the tier cities list, then we're happy to send that out to you as well. We do sincerely wish you the best of luck in China, and I think, like what we've said, there's huge opportunity there. You just need to make sure that you're strategic in your approach and you've got everything planned. So best of luck with your exporting adventures, and I hope you all have a great week.
Thank you, and please feel free to contact me, Leila. If you require marketing assistance, please contact Leila. If you are looking for market research and finding business partners, distributors, please contact me directly.
Or if you'd like to be part of the Export Growth Program as well, it's fantastic.
Exactly. If you want to be part of the Export Growth China program, you can contact me directly, or you go to visit exportgrowth.com.au. And I wish everybody have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.